Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a death battle prediction. Today I'll be discussing the upcoming death battle between Venom and Bane. In this video, I'll give a basic rundown of their backstories, cover their various powers and capabilities, explain why these characters were paired against each other, and then finally give my prediction on who I think is going to win. First off is Venom. The Venom symbiote is an alien organism. It was discovered by Spider-Man on another planet, and it promptly attached itself to him and became a black Spider-Man outfit. At first, Spidey was down with it, as the symbiote gave him a variety of extra benefits while wearing it. But once he found out that it was alive and trying to permanently fuse with him, he got rid of it at a bell tower. As it turns out, the intense sound of the bells caused the symbiote great pain. At this point, the symbiote fell down into the church below, where it attached itself to the nearby Eddie Brock, a guy who just so happened to hate Peter Parker. The symbiote fused with Brock, and they became the first and most well-known version of the supervillain Venom. But the symbiote wasn't done yet. Over the course of its life, it has fused with a variety of other characters since Eddie Brock, and as such, depending on its host at the time, Venom has bounced back and forth on the moral spectrum between villain and anti-hero. Now that's the basic story of Venom, but let's get down to its capabilities. When being worn, the symbiote provides a variety of superhuman attributes and benefits to its host. Most notably is that since the symbiote's first host was Spider-Man, it copied and retained all of Spider-Man's powers, and it thus gives those to its hosts. In fact, the powers it grants are actually superior versions of Spidey's powers. For example, Venom's spider sense is faster and more efficient than Peter Parker's due to the fact that it doesn't have to relay the information to a human. What this means is that with Peter, the spider sense has to detect the threat and then tell Peter about that threat, and then it's up to Peter to react and move his body. But with Venom, the symbiote both provides the spider sense and is capable of moving its host's body. That means it cuts out the middleman by going straight from detecting danger to avoiding danger. On top of that, the symbiote provides a practically unlimited supply of webbing that is both stronger and more durable than Spider-Man's. And Spider-Man's webbing is strong enough to withstand several tons of pressure and can restrain characters like the Hulk, the Blob, and the Thing. In fact, Venom is one of the few Spider-Man's foes that can rip through his webs with ease. This is due to the incredible strength the symbiote provides. One of the powers the symbiote copied was Spider-Man's super strength, and Spider-Man is very strong, as in, he once held up the Daily Bugle and kept it from collapsing. And that is a 46-story building. So not only does Venom have that, but there's actually an extra element to Venom's strength that makes it even more deadly. Have you ever noticed that the symbiote's size seems to vary? Like, sometimes it's thin and skin tight, while other times it's massive and bulbous. Well, that's because, as long as it has a host to build off of, the symbiote can actually significantly increase its muscle mass. This allows it to boost its size and physical power dramatically. There are typically about 3 sizes the symbiote takes. There's the thin, skin-tight size, which grants strength about equal to Spider-Man. Then there's the larger, more iconic Venom size, which has strength superior to Spider-Man. And then there's the absolutely titanic Venom size. Holy nightmare fuel. This form grants monstrous amounts of power, allowing Venom to perform absurd feats of strength, like, for example, holding up a collapsing mine shaft. However, there is one somewhat downside to using this form, namely, using it kinda sorta causes Venom to go into an unstoppable berserker rampage, which can be good or bad depending on the context. While Venom may be big and strong, it's also fast, capable of matching Spider-Man in combat, who can move 200 miles per hour. This, combined with its spider sense, allows it to perform many similar feats to Spider-Man, such as dodging point-blank gunfire and even catching bullets. However, if Venom just doesn't feel like dodging, it can always just face tank the bullets. This is due to the symbiote's incredible durability. It can tank high-caliber rounds at point blank like it was nothing, and it can even absorb the bullets before spitting them back out with enough force to kill people. Not to mention, it laughs off attacks from Spider-Man, who is, and I cannot undersell this, one of the most physically powerful characters in the Marvel Universe. There was a time when the only characters that were considered stronger than Spidey were the Thing, the Hulk, and the Thor. So for Venom to literally laugh off Spider-Man's attacks is seriously impressive. And if that wasn't enough, Venom has also tanked hits from Juggernaut, Colossus, Namor, Ghost Rider, the Thing, the Hulk, and the Thor. And even if Venom were to sustain damage, the symbiote has incredible regenerative capabilities, and it extends this power to its host in the form of an impressive healing factor. How impressive, you may ask? Well, it automatically heals relatively minor wounds like cuts, scrapes, and gunshots, but it can also heal normally fatal wounds, such as being impaled through the chest, which tends to be the primary way that Venom gets harmed. Outside of the physical enhancements, the symbiote also has a variety of more unique powers, with the most obvious being that it is a shapeshifter. This has a variety of benefits. For stealthier tactics, the symbiote can transform into normal clothing for blending into society, or it can even take on the appearance of its surroundings and become practically invisible. On the offensive side of things, Venom can transform parts of itself into large, spiky, and club-like weaponry, or can form dark tendrils that can be used to bind its foes, suffocate them, or just tear them apart. It is this shapeshifting that allows Venom to form its iconic teeth and tongue, and it can grow these anywhere on its body, such as the time it grew a mouth on its stomach. Because reasons. Venom can form copies of itself to distract and trick foes, or it can separate from its host entirely and fight independently, although it can only do so for 12 hours before returning to a liquid state. But what is perhaps Venom's most brutal way of killing a foe is splitting off a portion of itself and then sending that piece to burrow its way inside someone, typically through their nose or mouth, before tearing them apart and killing them from the inside. Because the giant alien monster that can turn invisible and rip through steel wasn't scary enough already. To quickly sum up the rest of its powers, it can breathe underwater, protect its host from toxins and gases, as well as diseases like cancer, attach itself to cars to form the Venommobile that actually happened, and also Venom has a venomous bite that pretty much took Sandman out in one foul chomp. With all this absurd power, of course Venom has some weaknesses. Most notably, it is vulnerable to sonic and fire-based attacks. However, it is worth noting that as time has passed, the symbiote has become more and more resistant to these types of attacks. For example, one time Venom was trying to kill Carnage, but it turns out it was a trap, and a bunch of soldiers pop out armed with sonic guns and flamethrowers. One panel later, they're all dead, and Venom is unharmed, because as Venom put it, he is the best, and no amount of sonic guns or flamethrowers were going to stop him. Now for Bane. This backstory is a bit longer, so I'll try to make it quick. Bane was the child of a notorious criminal, and as punishment for his father's crimes, Bane inherited his father's life sentence. As such, Bane was born and raised in a corrupt, hellish South American prison. Bane managed to survive these horrific conditions through exercising, meditating, and staying focused on his goal of becoming his perfect self, a king among men. Bane eventually got access to the prison's library, where he read every single book, and he would even smuggle in more books from the outside. Through this, Bane quickly became well learned in a wide range of fields. With his ever-increasing strength, skill, and determination, it was not long before Bane was the effective king of the prison. However, as it so happens, some government scientists had set up shop in the prison and were looking for a strong inmate to try their experiment on, and Bane seemed like the perfect candidate. So they rounded him up and forcibly injected him with an experimental super steroid, codenamed Venom. Bane survived the process, much to the scientists' delight, so they went ahead to step 2 and put implants in Bane's skull that would allow for Venom to be directly pumped into his brain. Bane quickly realized how powerful the Venom made him, so he had one of his fellow inmates steal the formula, and then they all broke out and set sail for Gotham City. Bane had heard of this terrifying city, and more importantly, he had heard of its ruler, a being called Batman. Bane wanted to test himself, and he figured if he could defeat the most terrifying man in the most terrifying city, then he would have truly become the great man he always dreamed of becoming. So he set about studying the city and Batman, and despite all odds, he actually figured out Batman's secret identity. So Bane set a cunning plan in motion. He arranged for all the criminals at Arkham Asylum to be let loose, intending to run Batman ragged as he tried to stop them all. And while all this was happening, Bane went to Wayne Manor and waited for Batman to return. Everything went exactly as planned. Batman returned home, completely exhausted, and was promptly attacked by Bane. Batman was just too tired to put up much of a fight at this point, and Bane pummeled him. And then Bane did what no one else had ever done before. He broke Batman. Since that day, Bane's character has changed a bit. He has gradually moved away from being a villain and more into becoming a bit of an anti-hero, to the point that Batman has both funded him and also fought alongside him. Alright, that's the backstory. Let's get into his combat capabilities. We'll start with what he can do without Venom. Bane is very physically strong, highly skilled, and knowledgeable in a wide range of weaponry and martial arts, and he's also a strategic genius. While Bane himself does not carry weapons into battle, that doesn't stop him from handily defeating foes that do. He once killed 30 people in a prison riot, and he has killed groups of armed thugs as well as groups of professional soldiers with ease. He broke Killer Croc's bones, withstood an electric jolt from a shock collar that would have killed a normal man, one-shot Man-Bat, held his own in a sword fight with Ra's al Ghul, survived getting pelted with literally hundreds of bricks, and he survived getting tossed a huge distance by this giant person. With Venom, he becomes bigger, stronger, and more durable. In this state, he's strong enough to lift massive boulders as well as jump several stories. The Venom even makes him strong enough to casually defeat Killer Croc. On top of all that, Venom actually gives him a bit of a pseudo-healing factor, as on multiple occasions, Bane has been on the verge of death, and by taking just a little bit of Venom, not only does he survive, but he actually gets back up and rejoins the fight. And if Bane really wants to go all out, he can crank up his Venom usage to dangerous levels. This gives him even more size and strength, however doing this causes him to go into a berserker rage. On top of all that, there are two somewhat impressive feats that I should address. In the Superman animated series, Superman, disguised as Batman, beat the ever-living shit out of Bane, and in another instance, during a fight between Superman and Doomsday, Bane jumped in at the last minute to hold Doomsday in place for Superman to finish him off. However, Bane does have one notable weakness, specifically when it comes to his Venom usage. Venom is a highly addictive substance, and should Bane use the Venom and then have his supply cut off, he will suffer intense and immediate withdrawal. This causes him to not only return to his normal size, but to actually go a step further and become smaller, losing muscle and becoming physically drained. This is a weakness that has been exploited time and time again. And that's pretty much everything I know about the two characters. Before I get to who I think will win, here's a quick rundown of why Venom and Bane were pitted against each other. Marvel vs. DC. Spider-Man and Batman share many characteristics, enough so that they got their own death battle. And since Venom and Bane are villains for those two heroes, they have that connection going for them. Both characters are some of, if not the most physically powerful villains that Spider-Man and Batman regularly fight. Both characters started off as villains, but became more heroic over time. Both use something called Venom to give them superhuman powers. Both can boost their strength an extra level at the cost of going berserk. And last but not least, both characters are twisted versions of the heroes. Venom is obviously evil Spider-Man, and while Bane and Batman may not look much alike, their stories are actually extremely similar. They were both orphaned at a young age, they both experienced tragedy that set them on their paths to become great men, they both pushed their minds and bodies to their maximum potential, and when they were done training, they dressed in goofy outfits and set out to exercise their will upon the world. There was even a time when they thought they might have the same dad. Alright, the time has come. I think the winner of the upcoming death battle will be Venom. I mean, this isn't really a surprise. After doing the research, I am fairly confident that Venom outclasses Bane in every single regard, except intelligence. I think Bane's the superior strategist of the two, but in a death battle where there is no prep time, I don't think that intelligence is going to do him much good. Venom's various victories are far more impressive than anything Bane has done. Now you may be thinking, but Jaru, didn't Bane take hits from Superman and do something or another with Doomsday? Doesn't that outclass anything Venom has done? Actually, no, it does not. Here's why. In the Doomsday scenario, Bane joined the fight at the last moment, at which point Doomsday was already near death. On top of that, he caught Doomsday by surprise, and he only held him for the briefest of moments. Namely, he only held him long enough for Superman to deliver the final attack. And Superman is quite fast. And in the other situation, where Superman beat him up, that doesn't really mean anything, because Superman actively and very carefully holds back on his punches to ensure that he doesn't kill his opponents. Plus, in this particular scenario, Superman was pretending to be Batman, and as such, was holding back more than usual to ensure that he appeared as unsuper as possible. And if you want absolute proof that Bane is nowhere near Superman level, in this situation, Batman has stolen Superman's powers because of plot, and Bane jumped him. Batman responded by giving Bane what Boomstick would call a good old-fashioned Superman high five. As such, I see no evidence that Bane could even remotely stack up to Venom in raw strength. When it comes to durability, Venom also has the edge, especially with regards to regeneration. For example, in this instance, Venom got impaled through the chest by another symbiote, and not only did he survive and regenerate from that wound, he actually kept fighting and managed to hold his own. When Bane suffered a similar wound, he was down and out, and all his venom did was just barely keep him alive. And while Bane's venom may grant him size and strength, it does nothing for his speed. At most we can say he has peak human levels of speed, whereas Venom can dodge or catch point-blank bullets and move over 200 miles per hour. But even if Bane were somehow able to match Venom in terms of physical power, he simply doesn't have many ways to deal with Venom's more unusual powers, like his camouflage, spider sense, and his ability to kill you from the inside. Bane may be an amazing tactician, but the fact that he never utilizes any weaponry or gadgets means he lacks versatility. His combat strategy almost exclusively consists of him beating people to death. Now let's say, just for the sake of argument, that they decided to give him weapons. The problem is, all of the human weapons he could be given are useless against Venom. Assault rifles, shotguns, and pistols all do nothing. Now you may be thinking, what about high explosives? Surely grenades or rocket launchers could do something to Venom. Actually, no, they can't. Venom once tanked an anti-tank missile to the face, followed by a bunch of grenades packed with white phosphorus that created a massive fireball, which is a weakness of his. And he was unfazed. And most important, the biggest reason for why Bane cannot beat Venom is that, just like Spider-Man and Batman before him, Bane's greatest accomplishments require days, if not weeks, of planning. He knew he couldn't take down Batman in a fair fight. That's why he arranged for Batman to fight like every other Batman villain ever in order to wear him down enough for Bane to have the opportunity to break him. And if you want absolute proof that Bane loses to Batman in a fair fight, here it is. Here, Bane had just taken a massive dose of Venom, at which point Batman showed up to take him down. They had a fight, and Batman kicked his ass. And Batman didn't cut off his Venom supply, he didn't use any fancy gadgets, he just used a few batarangs, hit Bane over the head a few times with a garden statue, and then finished him off with a good old-fashioned Captain Kirk-style double fist punch. And Bane was out for the count. If Bane can't even beat this in a fist fight, how the hell is he going to beat this in a fist fight? The only question that remains is what the ending pun will be. My money is on either looks like Bane met his Bane, or looks like Venom was his Bane. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a fantastic day.